I was watching one of the Barry lads streams. I want to say like a week ago, and he was trying out shredders, which he was trying off of the back of the fact that I had spoken about it a week prior or something. And he was like playing through it, someone had asked about like other snowboard. I can't remember how the conversation went, but he mentioned offhand that SSX3 was on the Xbox store to buy, and I was like, excuse me, the fuck what? So I went, and sure enough, that thing was there to purchase on my Xbox Series S for $9.99. So that was immediately purchased, and just by the breadth of mentioning this to Jack, he within seconds had also purchased SSX3. So join us as we go back to 2003 to talk about, what was one of the pivotal moments for us, both in terms of us playing games, but also just us playing games together, because some people might not be aware of this, most people probably don't care, but like a fair amount of the gaming that I did during the mid 2000s was with my partner in crime here.
Yeah, that is true. Many a Friday night where most people were out getting drunk, trying to get laid, me and you just hacking away at some video games. I think we were cool, he says. We were also in a band though, so I guess not a cool band. But yes, SSX3 was one of the games that we played. The legendary story that it nearly made us late to a maths GCSE exam as well, once back in the day. And I have it on PlayStation 2. I haven't plugged my PS2 in for a while, so the idea that I could just have it on a console that I do have currently plugged into my TV and operating was too good of an opportunity to pass up and spend a little time getting to grips with the challenges of big mounting once again. And Mark, you said you've been having some struggles playing SSX3 again.
Yeah, I keep over rotating. Like I do one flip too many, and I just jump straight back into the game, but I feel like the game doesn't do a particularly good job of like explaining how to play it. Like the kind of, and again, this is a 2003 game, but I feel like the kind of tutorials of this game are just non-existent. So I've really been using muscle memory to try and remember how the fuck to play this thing, and I'm most of the way there again, but most of it has just been trying to remember like my lines and just trying to not like over rotate, that unfortunately I keep doing. But like this thing, right, I think the big thing that I want to celebrate here is the fact that for a game from 2003, this still feels as like polished and as smooth. And if this game was released as it was as like a 2022 game, I'd have absolutely no issues with it outside of some of the textures are very like low res and whatnot, but who cares? Shredders is a 2022 game and has a lot of textures that are low res and look fucking garbage, and also has screen tearing, but whatever, that's for another day. No, I don't even want to talk about that game again. I spent my time with it. It's not that great. But with SSX3, I think there are two things going on here. One, it's a very, very well polished game that still holds up and stands the test of time. But also, because there hasn't really been a snowboarding game, and I can't talk for Steep because I never played it, but there hasn't really been a snowboarding game that has taken what SSX3 did and elevated it or enhanced or improved on it. So SSX3 for me is still like the standard bearer, and I've got like nothing I've played since. Because if you play like first person shooter games or action adventure games, one of the big things obviously is the addition of the right analog stick as your camera. So whenever you play like a late 90s platforming game, the thing that you're always trying to do that you can't do is move the camera around, and it's just like, this is driving me up the wall. But you don't have that here with SSX3 because there hasn't been anything since that has like improved on what is for me a perfect snowboarding game.
Yeah, I agree. I think, to be honest, if I think about just in general any sort of extreme sports games, has there been anything that's really rivaled Tony Hawk in the last decade or so, really? Like what, Skate 3 came out, 2011 maybe? Was that around that time?
Yeah, I mean, as we found out last week, Skate 2 was 2009.
2009, yeah. Yeah, no, it was 2010, so they hammered that out like the next year. Because, EA love a yearly game service.
And don't you forget BMX XX?
PMX Triple X, yeah. Let's forget that ever happened. There's a really good Let's All Laugh at an Industry Yahtzee Croshaw video on the many travails of Acclaim, and one of them is BMX Triple X. Putting that aside, I don't think anything has really improved on the formulas that were kind of created in the early 2000s. To me, there's never been a more fun arcadey skateboard game than Tony Hawk. There's nothing's, really even come close. And there's never been a more fun arcadey snowboarder game than SSX3, SSX Tricky. Like, they are the standard bearers, really, for that genre. And I don't know how well Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 remastered games did. I think they did pretty well.
So I'll have a look for you right now as you talk.
I was going to say, I don't know if the market is really there for another snowboard game, or is it just the fact that if it was now, it would all be very games as a live service-y type situation. People wouldn't be really into that.
So if you want to know how well Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 did, this is from September 14th, 2020, so not long after the games came out, I'd imagine. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 becomes fastest selling game in series with 1 million copies sold through.
I'm not surprised by that, though. I'm really not.
So I think it did all right.
Yeah, but then the way that Activision is now, and the fact that I guess maybe the fact that Microsoft bought Activision might mean more of a chance of us seeing another Tony Hawk.
Oh, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? You really would think so.
Because then they could just go, oh yeah, there's Tony Hawk, either remaster 3 and 4 or just an all new Tony Hawk game with that same engine and physics that they managed to bring to the remaster. And we're going to launch it live on Game Pass on day one, and I think everybody would be super, super excited.
In fairness, that's one of the few games that if they said, nah, you're paying 80 quid, like, take my money, I don't care.
Yeah, I would still pay it, yeah. I don't give a shit. I love any Tony Hawk game. But it's the same point broadly that applies to SSX3. I don't think anything has ever really improved on the formula that was kind of put in place for Tricky and 3. And the SSX sort of reboot game from, I want to say, around 2012 was also very, very good. As we've talked about the limitations and the fact that it could be broken by using wingsuits, etc., etc. But
I mean, you ruined that game for me. Just want to point that out there.
Yeah, the actual mountain gameplay and the racing and stuff on there was very, very good as well.
And that is actually on Game Pass as well. You can go play that right now if you have Game Pass.
It is. I just don't see EA dusting off and rebooting that series anytime soon. And all of the other, like Steep, which I didn't really enjoy that much, and what is that called? The Shredders. That it's just like the only thing the things that I've seen of it just looks so clunky, and you gotta say, like, the gameplay of SSX3 just feels so smooth.
Yeah,
like the moves.
Shredders is just it feels like there's a ball and chain tied to your character. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. It's not. It's like it's not far removed from Skatebird, but it is miles better than Skatebird because most things are. But it trails the line. It's on the line very closely to feeling, similar to a Skatebird.
Yeah. I can't really accept that for a snowboarding game, because you either make a realistic snowboarding game where the challenge is the mountain and negotiating the course, or you make it arcadey and fun for people to play, and it looked like neither of those things. So I didn't want to be disappointed again.
This is the thing I was saying. I think I mentioned this when I was talking about Shredders, is that I wonder, or I argue, that I don't think snowboarding as a sport is conducive to that, like, skate/esque simulation style of game, because with skate,
it could be. I think it could be. I genuinely do think it could be, because if you have like a cool like, you know, the concept of the game, say kind of like the backcountry levels in SSX3, right, where you're going down like the trickier races where you have the top of the peak races. I find those really cool, and there's like stuff breaking away and parts of the environment are changing around you as you're going down it, and you've got to negotiate it. If you focused on a similar thing like that, where it was about, you know, the fastest route to sort of survival down a course. I'm not necessarily saying like, you know, generated by the system, so it's like a roguelike thing where it's different every time you play it, but that, I think that could work as a sort of survival race game, but it's all about the game feel, really. I think you could work anything that you wanted with a skateboard game if you got the game feel right, which is what we talked about in that episode as well. And that's just what no one has really managed to emulate very well ever since. And I don't know why. And maybe it was because they developed it with their own engines back in the day. Although the new Unreal Engine, is it out to use for everyone now?
I did get a message yesterday saying, "Hey, come and jump in with Unreal 5." So I haven't tried it yet, but I'm guessing it's out now.
So everyone's kind of using similar engines at the moment, but I wonder if we could, with that Unreal Engine, if we could get a really excellent snowboarding game or skateboarding game or something made, or some sort of, you know, I'd take a BMX game. The last extreme sports games that I've really got into were Trials. It's a shame that the newer Trials was kind of just all right. But there is only so much you can do in terms of a new Trials game, I think. Whereas there's a lot of fun things you could do with like a new skateboarding game or a new Tony Hawk's game or something in that genre. But it's all to do with getting that game feel right and that development. But then whether companies would want to develop a game and whether they would feel that you would get enough money from it, whether it would be a big enough money spinner, now that you've not got those sort of middle of the pack games anymore, as it were. Like, it's only AAA and a lot of independently developed titles. And I feel like the extreme sports game probably fits into those middle of the pack games in terms of sales, right?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I haven't looked, but I'd say you're probably right. But look, I mean, again, Tony Hawk's made $1 million, but I feel like Tony Hawk's as a whole, like as a zeitgeist, had a far wider reaching impact than SSX, I would say. I think that'd be a fair assessment, just because like skateboarding as a whole, just had a big kind of culture shock in the early 2000s, as we've discussed on this show before. But you know, like, I'm sure the two of us, we're going to be pining for that SSX3 remake, or, you know, like just a new SSX of some description, possibly without wingsuits next time.